All right, guys. Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon with Swiftfire International. I'm super excited today to have a returning guest and to be able to talk to you guys in real life because I have been in Facebook jail for over a month, and this is my first time to be able to come out in a month. So, hi to everybody, and hope you had a Merry Christmas, everybody. And now we're heading into this 2022, which sounds just weird to say, but yeah. And so I have a return guest here on, and actually I have her book from last year and she has her book from this year. If you can hold it up for us. Yes, this is the code journey. And as we know, everything is in code. So we're going to talk about this next coming year and what we have in store for the codes that are here in this minute. And this is always changeable. Everything is fixable and changeable, just like epigenetics. Because we're the creators. And so we are the ones who are putting out the code in this field, and then those field gets a collective and the field shifts the whole world. So we're taking like a kind of a eye view mirror shot of where we are right now and discussing that. But before we get started, definitely want to give a shout out to swiftfire.org. Please get on the newsletter, check that out because of all the censoring. That's the best way that you can find me. And also my book is out there, and I have some classes and workshops that are coming up for this year. We're going to do one on outcome mapping and also one on the science of miracles. So go to swiftfire.org to get that information, or just watch me some of the posts on Facebook and YouTube and all the other places that will have that information. So without further ado, hello, An. I know you've had a lot of transition in this last few months, and you've been on the road, and tell us a little bit about your journey and what is going on for 2022. That just sounds so weird, 2022.
Doesn't it? And it sounds even weirder to me because I'm getting ready to start writing 2023. So that sounds even stranger in this whole process of time frames of being in the end of this year and shifting to the next year. But, Sharnael, it's been an amazing journey since we last chatted and I was on your show at the beginning of this year. And I've had an opportunity to take a big leap of faith and some big jumps along the way, and to really just fully embrace this work. As you mentioned, I went on tour for a couple of months, about 2.5 months. I was on tour and traveled all over the U.S. Matter of fact, passed through your area, and we were going to try to connect when I went through. And of course, Hurricane Ida
We had that hurricane thing going on,
which was only one of 3 or 4 hurricanes that I outran. Well, a couple of hurricanes and a couple of tornadoes. And so it was a pretty exciting trip that way. And so great. It was so great to be out in the world, to connect with people at these different holistic venues. And in that process, my book got picked up as recommended material from the Light Language Institute, which is based in Texas. And so, kind of a shout out to them for picking that up and thinking that was right in divine alignment and wanting people to know about it. And it's getting picked up by bookstores. So that's been exciting. That's gradually growing up. And I took a leap of faith. And when I went on the road, I left the place I was living. I had some big challenges to face. Since we last met, being in that space, even though there were a lot of favorable codes, there were things in my codes that were hitting my health patterns, and it blew out my nervous system twice. Being there completely blew it out. So I had to make some big decisions and say, do I, one, really want to pay rent on a place I'm not going to be in for a couple of months? And two, even if I did that, is that really the smart thing to do, given what's happening to my health and the growth that was happening in that space for the people that owned it? And I said, this isn't where I belong anymore. I need something else. And of course, I came back and everything was in this chaos, which is, this year, 2021, the codes talked all about this change and this turnover and this transition and things like that. And so it was a big transition to come back and find that the rents had basically doubled here
Wow.
in Maine. And people had just gone crazy, greedy, insane, which the codes had talked about. And so it was been a real challenge, and I've had to sit in a lot of faith. But just in the last couple of weeks, I was very excited to really see that this great little cabin property came through as a rental for me. So that's I get to move in there in a few days, and I'll be in there to write the 2023, which is going to be amazing. You saw a picture of what my view is going to be like when I'm writing, and so that's really great. And 2022 is going to be very, very interesting. I've titled 2022 the year of embracing a heart of love, and I just did a video on that on my regular YouTube channel, as well as some other ones I'm on. Bridie on is another channel. BitChute's another video channel that people can catch that on. And so it was really exciting to be able to put that out there. And it's always fun, when I'm writing a year in advance on these things, on these books, it's fun to just kind of see what's coming in. And I'm happy to say that, yes, we have some good things that are going to come in. We have some balancing factors that are going to be coming in 2022. And yay, we're going to have some good things. I can't say it's going to be all an easy ride, because sometimes in order for us to get to that balancing point, we can be bouncing around between extremes. So, we still have to be on guard. But I think it helps to know that when the challenges are coming up, when the tough stuff is coming up, that there is a balance that's happening in this process. So I'm going to pause there and see what you want to say. And I think there's some people dropping some comments in.
Yes, no, I was just, yes, no, yes, no. What I was going to say is I just had an interview with Laura about this regarding new beginnings. People get all excited about new beginnings, but what people don't always talk about or expect or ascertain is with new beginnings, oftentimes there's death of old things. And sometimes that could be really painful, especially if it's like friendship or a job that you really loved or a location where you live that you were like, is this like really what I'm supposed to do? And you're kind of nervous about, like you said, it's a leap of faith. And sometimes there's heartache involved. Sometimes it's like people who betray or whatever. And it's like, Robert Tennyson Stevens is a friend of mine, and he always says, a blessing, a gift not received becomes a burden or a curse. And when he first started telling me that, when different things would pop up, I didn't always understand what he was saying. But basically, it's about perception. So if something bad, which what is good or bad, happens, and we have the perception that, oh, shoot, this is terrible, my life is over, cancel clear, or, I never saw that coming, and you're just the shakeup of unexpected things can kind of be a little bit hard to process, but or we can look at it as, what, this is the most awesome gift. Thank you so much for letting me see where you're at, or letting me see job that you don't value this, or letting you see partner that, what's really going on that behind closed doors. And now I can make a new decision, because why would anyone want to be in a situation where all this undercurrent of deception or lies or corruption or whatever is going on, and stay, so sometimes, again, it's difficult to, process the triggers and the emotions that go through all of the shifts, but navigating through all that, if we can look at it as a blessing and a gift, then it doesn't become a burden. It becomes that blessing and that gift. And so, again, what he says is a gift given that's not received becomes a burden. And so, look at everything and just everyone out there. I know we're all on our own journey and we're having our own live versions, especially with the holidays going through. There's a lot of transition with actual lives and people moving. Oh my God, this last year, I've said this like 15 times. We're really finding out who our friends are and who real family is in the middle. And it has been like, some of it is just like, whoa, no, not you too. And I could say that laughing this very second, but I might cry in 10 minutes. Like I'm telling you, it's been whatever. But yeah, so pop in and anything you choose to say, like I'd love for you to share.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up that point, actually, and it's true, because these are the things where oftentimes we think, well, the changes are always going to be good or things like this, and of course, a lot of that, it is up to us to, make it that way in a lot of aspects. And it's such a great reminder because I think we have, there's been so much truth coming out and us seeing the truth, and it's really hard. It's really hard to make the changes sometimes. It's really hard to embrace the transitions or the shifts that are happening because they may not be ones that our human self want to make in this process. But we do have a lot of death ending completion energy coming up in 2022. That's going to be a very predominant theme. So when you brought that up, I'm sitting here smiling because that works on the code pattern of breakthrough or breakdown. And exactly what you were mentioning there is that we need to be able to see the blessings in what's trying to break us down. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can embrace the opportunities that are being offered to us and hang in there and focus on the breakthrough, then we will get the blessings out of it. But if we're focusing on how heavy everything is, if we're focusing that, gosh, this is such a big burden, I can't handle this anymore, and things like that, then it's just going to get heavier and heavier and heavier. It's kind of like they say, if you don't learn the lesson early on in the game, it's going to get harder and harder and harder until you learn that lesson. Like you're not going to be able to get out of the lesson part. And we have to remember that in this balancing part, again, we can waver between these extremes. So there's going to be passing. There's going to be death. There's going to be strange happenings. There's going to be supernatural energy coming up. But we can always take that and turn that into a new beginning. As you say, whatever is ending, that's going to open space for something else. The proverbial, when one door closes, another door opens. And somebody actually brought this up to me the other day, or made a post about this the other day, that works with the Code Journey work. And it was like this aspect of mentioning, how hard it is working with people and having people in your life that are not there having your back. And I think a lot of people have felt that recently. A lot of people can relate to that. And yet, as we're releasing the people that don't have our back, we are finding the people who do have our back. And Absolutely. We don't always know who these people are. And this is some of the aspects of, even with deception energy, which we've dealt a lot with in 2021, it's still going to be present, where we have a lot of truth coming out into 2022 as well. And, if we can get into this space of love, if we can get into this heart energy, we can release what isn't working for us, whether that's people or situations or whatever, with love, with unconditional love. And I think that that's a big key. When we enter that, we can naturally start to create this balance piece. So this kind of wavering, and it's always a shifting and a transition and an adjustment. And where I was going was, even with the lies, you can find some beautiful truths that come out. You may find those people that you weren't close to before that you finally get a connection with. And so there is a lot of this transitioning, a lot of this shifting, a lot of this changing. But this heart energy, this love energy is going to be so powerful in 2022. And I think we sometimes underestimate that power. We underestimate thinking it's got to be a giant group of people that comes into this energy, but we forget that it starts with us. If
Yes.
we take that responsibility, if we take hold, if we choose to be in that space, then we are going to draw other people into that space. Some people are simply looking for people to, to take the lead. And you never know, you may be that inspiration for somebody else. So we can literally change the world from our own space. The numbers will eventually come around, but we have to be willing to be strong enough to make the breakthroughs. We have to be willing to be strong enough to stand in that unconditional love until we get the breakthrough. And yes, there's going to be times you feel like breaking down. There's going to be times that you're just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But this is also a wonderful year and a wonderful opportunity for us to shift who is running things, who is leading things. And so these people who are operating in integrity, these people who are able to come from a heart of love, I'm encouraging you, step up and take a leadership position, whatever that may be, wherever you feel driven. If you're a parent and you feel driven to, be involved in a school organization or something like that, because we need the people that are standing in that space to help bring this balance. We've been wavering back and forth for centuries, and thousands of years. We keep going through these cycles, but what we want to do is to kind of move out of those extremes a bit. And the reality of it is in this upcoming year, Sharnael, we're going to have to unify. Not in the way that everybody thinks we're all going to be the same or that sort of thing, but we need to blend our skills. We need to come together and use, you have certain gifts and talents, I have certain gifts and talents, and we need to start integrating those and bringing them together in aspects. We need to come together as humanity in this upcoming year. And this is a very, very pivotal, important piece to do. As we come together as humanity, we're going to have to lay aside our differences. We're going to have to say, okay, I accept that you have a different opinion. I accept that you look differently, or you're going to make a different choice than me. I don't have to make that same choice, but at some point, it's about humanity. And we need to come back around and say, look, if you're struggling on the side of the road, I'm not going to sit there and ask 20 questions before I help you. You're a human being, you're a person, and if you need help, I'm going to help you if I can help you. There's things I can help in, there's things I can't help in. There's things that other people can help in that I can't help in, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be the core piece, and this is going to be the turning point in this year. Can we start to come together as humanity? And the way that we're going to do that is through a heart of love.
Yes, and I have a whole book about that. The Science of Miracles, the underscore is remembering the frequency of love. And that is the absolute undercurrent of every miracle anyway, is getting into that alignment with who miracles are, which is us, God in us, and the kingdom within. And so integration is really important, and I'm just making sure, and I've made a few posts about this in the last week or so, especially because not just watching what people or hearing what people say, but watching what they do. And then even more importantly, looking at ourselves and saying, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How am I participating? How am I showing up? Am I staying in integrity? Am I being integrated? Because integration is mind, body, and soul alignment with love and that heart of love that you're talking about. And so when if everything that we do is out of the right intention or pre-tension or whatever, however energetically you want to say it, it's the tension within, the intention of what we're putting out as we project. It's felt, it's authentic. So someone can say words like, I don't know, I choose to say like something negative, but say it in a joking, funny way, and people would know she's just kidding because of the tone, because of the undercurrent, because they know my credibility, they know how I really feel. I have, a backup, record of things that I've done with that person, there's history, versus sometimes when things are just written out or or said in a different way, in a different tone, and they can be taken differently. And so everything is about the heart. Just like what you keep saying, it's in my book too. This year, I believe, I hope, because twos are like a big thing for me. I love twos because it has to do with the doors opening, doors shutting, and I just encourage everyone that within every challenge that comes, understand that every challenge contains a victorious opportunity. It's just about perception. If we can see even the worst case scenario to be an opportunity, a victorious opportunity, then we can actually make a difference in what we're doing. And I mean, even with you taking time to write this book for us, to have these codes, it took you time. You had to sit down and like write it out, and you're doing 2023 already for us. And so, it's whatever your skills are, like she says, putting the axe to the grind and actually, causing the manifestation. And I think that a lot of times we get caught up in like imagination and like outcoming and, visualization, and all of that is absolutely important, but also action is part of integrity, is like doing it, making some steps physically to walk out love, make that phone call, send that letter, help someone out next door, pick up that person on the side of the road, like she said. And again, she said, look over the distance of the, whatever's differences. And sometimes that can be challenging a little bit to be like, oh my God, she's so mean to me and blah, blah, blah. But I'm still going to do this for her because it's the right thing to do. And because I choose to stay in my integrity. And I know we've had a lot of opportunities with the holidays, people coming over, people not coming over, people, with their ideas of how their health should be and what we should be doing with our health. And do you want to speak anything into that for this next year? Are there going to be any shifts regarding like freedom and standing up? And please.
Freedom's incredibly important in 2022. It's something that we cannot sacrifice. It's something that, just cannot be compromised on. And people don't realize oftentimes how often we were just turning our power over in small things, because we get to those points where we are hitting those sort of breakdown points, or we're tired or we're exhausted. And it's like, you know what, I just don't have the energy. So I'm just going to, let it be. I'm going to just let them have their way or whatever. And we want to be very, very careful about that, because that's going to be a huge challenge. Now, I saw in the comments, somebody was also asking about coastlines and things like that. And this is going to touch into what you were talking about in there, because with this energy, and part of what is going to call us into humanity and start to shift and bring this balance in, is that we have extreme weather patterns. So I'm going to feel for you down there in the area that you're in, because you are near a coastal region, and all coastal regions, all volcanic regions are going to get hit particularly hard. And that has to do with all of the emotional energy that's coming up. It has to do with the balancing of emotions. So we're likely to find a lot of people in trauma, in challenges, being pushed to their edges because of natural disasters. And a lot of this has to do with Mother Earth balancing out. Now, some of that is going to be connected to the HARP energy, where there's control issues. People are trying to control things. They're playing political games using that, and so on and so forth. But then there's also going to be Mother Nature that's going to be saying, hey, I've kind of had enough, and I'm getting tired of this game you're playing with me. And Mother Nature is going to start reclaiming. And that is also going to create some of these natural disasters to show up. So, in this, given that, the first thing I will say is, please be prepared. Be very careful about getting out into really way off trails someplace. at least make sure you can get to some kind of safety if you're going to be out in nature. Yes, we want to be out in nature. We want to have that connection, but we also want to be safe about it because these weather patterns can come out of nowhere. You could start off on a trail and have a beautiful sky, no weather, and then, monsoon or whatever hit out of nowhere. So you want to be careful. You want to pack extra provisions, whether it's wintertime, summertime, whatever it is. You want to have those extra provisions, and that will be part of the preventative care for balancing out. And it may not just be for you. It may be because you might come across somebody who needs those provisions that wasn't prepared in there. And so part of our coming together is really going to be connected to these weather patterns that are going to be surfacing. So these coastal regions are going to be very, very important. We want to be very careful from that regard. And this is an opportunity because at first glance, we think, okay, this is all about trauma. This is all about drama kicking up. And yes, there are probably going to be people that are going to be very dramatic in those situations. But at the same time, what is the opportunity there? We've been put through all of this hate and division with each other in the last couple of years and being pitted against each other. So when these traumatic situations come up, these natural disasters are surfacing all over the place, no matter what that's connected to, we want to stop and say, look, this is my opportunity to break down somebody's judgment that I'm a hateful person because I'm choosing freedom or because I'm choosing natural remedies over medical procedures or things like this. And so it gives us the opportunity to show ourselves as a kind and caring person. And imagine the impact that this could have on somebody that has been programmed to hate you because you've chosen a certain path or you're not making the same choices as them. And then their life is basically maybe in your hands, or they're in that tough situation and you're the one that's standing there helping them calmly. And it's going to break down those perceptions. So the people who can be calm, who can be the eye of the storm in the dramas and the turmoils and things like this, who can be there to lend a helping hand, then they're going to be the ones holding the power. And you have to be clear. You have to be in the divine alignment to be holding that power, to have that influence. And, it may hit you later. You may need to take time to process later. But in that moment, you have the opportunity to be somebody's angel. And imagine what happens if, say New York is hit. Let's take New York, for example. And New York has a big hurricane that hits, which actually is kind of predicted right now from what I hear from weather people, that this is a strong possibility that this is going to get hit. And so here they are. You've got a lot of people, not everybody, but you've got a lot of people in New York City maybe that are programmed to hate people that want freedom or whatever. And, those may be the very people that come to their rescue. The nurses, the medical professionals that said, hey, I'm not going to take this shot and have walked away from their jobs. They may be the very ones that are saving somebody's life.
Well, it's ironic because they were doing that anyway, and then they were let go. But yeah, I understand. It's it is there again. Within every challenge contains that victorious opportunity, and we get to be the light. We don't have to be the light, but we get to be the light in any circumstances, whether it's weather or your job or family issues. It's all about how we are going to respond, and if we're going to react and trigger and chaos, or if we're going to respond. And just when you, like medicine, when someone is given some sort of help or support, they'll say, oh, was there a reaction? And that means bad, right? Or response. You can have this beautiful response and it can work and it can help you. So Yeah. Are you seeing anything besides weather stuff that we should be kind of like up, kind of give a heads up on a little bit?
Well, definitely, we want to, when I'm looking at some things, this year is going to be really good for, and really important for us to do purifying in our life and our sphere. And, this is going to be a big thing. This is a year that we really need to let go of the addictions. We need to let go of the perversions. We need to be exchanging that immediate pleasure for lasting joy.
Wow.
And this can be kind of hard because our human self can get in the way, and that ego from our human self says, no, 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 I don't want to do this, because it automatically has this tendency to go into this deprivation mode and go to this other extreme of, well, then I can't have anything, I'm going to suffer, and so on and so forth. And that's not the case. Really, what we want to think about in this process is exchanging out things for experiences. And that's part of the difference. And I heard a lot of people, I was really excited to hear a lot of people this Christmas, and what they were doing is we're like, yeah, we decided not to exchange gifts this year, but we're going to take a family trip.
Oh, fun.
And I thought, wow, now this is where we're getting back to it. This is where we're getting back to using nature, people making ornaments out of seeds and things like that, so that the animals have something to feed on throughout the winter, instead of just going and buying plastic things and stuff like that. So, these experiences of making these things is what really builds the memories. They're the things that sit on our heart and bring us together. And so I think that this is an exciting thing to see. That's one of the things we really want to look at, and not look at this as a deprivation thing when we're doing this purifying body, mind, and spirit, but to really look at it as an opportunity to step further into our soul self. A lot of people talk about bringing the fifth dimension in, and we're never going to change the fact that this is a third dimensional world, but we can bring in a fifth dimension mindset. We can bring in a soul mindset, a divine presence mindset, a God mindset. And in doing that, that's also going to shift our world, because once we start coming from the soul self, we stop turning our power over. We stop, playing these games. We start looking at things from a different perspective, and looking at the different opportunities. And instead of sitting there going, oh, you're a jerk for believing a certain way, we start going, okay, I understand that you're caring about the environment. So let's sit here and do a study together.
That's good.
And let's sit down and look at all the pieces and go through some things. And maybe collaboratively, we can come up with something. So I think that is a really great thing about 2022. And I wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to go into that deprivation space. And some of these natural disasters are an opportunity for us to clear, purify, get rid of the materialism attachments. And it's these material attachments to things that are really destroying the spirit. When we look at it from codes, and you talk about, people talk a lot about the 666 vibration and the evil vibration. Well, what is that really connecting to? It's connecting to materialism. And so when we turn that around, and that is saying, look, indulge in some experiences. Yes, your human self needs some sensory experiences, but we don't need things outside of ourself to get that necessarily. Take the time to listen to the breeze, or smell the ocean air, or the pine trees, or whatever it is where you are, and take it in through your senses, engage your senses. And you don't have to buy anything to do that. So I think that's going to be a really incredible piece. And again, I think we're going to see a lot of leadership turnover, which is going to make the world very interesting as part of this.
Before we go there, it's interesting that you brought up basically what I call consumerism, because I think that's a program too. I mean, pretty much every commercial is like, buy this, buy that. And they show them, I'm so happy now because I have this new thing or that new thing. And it can be tempting to even subconsciously or unconsciously feel like you're not, like there's a hole or a gap here, that you're not fulfilling something, and trying to look for the thing, whether it's addictions or binging on Netflix, or buying that one more crystal or one more, I don't know, if you fill in the blank, and thinking, well, this will be the solution, and then I'll be better, and it'll be great. And it does actually give you some sort of dopamine, serotonin chemical response that does give you that high. But then there's that dip of like waking up next day and going, oh, my house is still this way, and my bills are still this way, and my partnership is still this way. So things don't really change. It's our small little actions of doing things step by step. And I think what I'm hearing, a lot of people with my consultations and doing coaching and just being on the phone with people, is I think a lot of people not only feel isolated because of the division, so they kind of feel alone, and or they're so overwhelmed that they don't know where to start, and so they just do nothing, because it's like they just feel like there's no way to, starting seems difficult. And so I would just encourage everybody to listen to what she's saying, and to look for those opportunities to go for a hike or go outside, or just, if it's the house, for example, that you're trying to clean, or you want to like purge, like she was talking about. It's like, don't think that you got to do the whole house in like 1 second and be done. How about take a drawer and go, I'm going to do this drawer this week, or I'm going to take 5 things out of my closet right now, and I'm going to donate them to someone who could really use them, or 10 things, or I don't know what you pick. But the feeling of giving and knowing that you're helping someone is very like satisfying, and your limbic system can't tell the difference between giving to someone else and receiving. But also you're clearing out a little bit, and you're doing it in steps, and you'll find that when you start, then you actually go, oh, well, this was kind of cool, I'm going to keep going. And then you find 10 more things, or 5 more things, or you make 2 more phone calls, or send 2 more letters, or do whatever the thing is that in your heart you kind of like maybe procrastinated on. Now, get to the gym. Like, it's not so bad when you get there, but getting there sometimes is like, oh my gosh, just freaking go to the gym, and then you get, oh, I got to do this thing, and you get distracted, and oh, the time's gone. I didn't get to go to the gym today. I'll go tomorrow. And you know what I'm saying? So some of that, again, is just like diving in with step 1 and taking little bites, like the bite. You don't eat a whole elephant at once, but just be encouraged. We're all there. There's so many people there. I mean, I've talked to so many people who just feel overwhelmed. And I actually was going to post something about this, because has time been weird for you? Like, for me, time has seemed really weird. Like in some ways, I feel like I'm like going through mud, trying to get anywhere in time. And other ways, it's like, oh my God, the day's already over and I haven't got anything done. And, you get stuck in Facebook or some distraction that kept you from doing all the things that you should have done that day. And is that, I don't know if any of you guys are feeling that too.
It does make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people have been there, that sense of being overwhelmed with change and all the unpredictable factors that are out there in the world. I think that has thrown a lot of people, and that kind of pulls them in these different directions and makes them uncertain and different things like that. I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of self-worth issues coming up, and that's connected to everything you were just talking about. And so they're doing a lot of looking out. And of course, if we follow the money, what's the point of promoting all of these material things?
Exactly.
It's to pay taxes. It's to go right into the hands of the elite. It's to, get you insecure and turning your power over to something outside of yourself, instead of being in that critical thinking, self-honoring space. And self-honoring doesn't mean selfish. It doesn't mean, not caring about other people or anything like that, but it means taking care of yourself. So when we look at these different pieces that you're talking about, as I tell people, I understand, maybe you have a crystal for this, or you burn a candle for that, or whatever the case is for you, but look at those as training wheels.
Good job.
in order to connect with a feeling, a thought, whatever it is. But don't come to rely on those things. Don't become addicted or think that those are the things that are making the difference. What's making the difference is the feeling that you're having, the mindset that you're in, how, that shift within you. And eventually you want to take those training wheels off and you want to just be in that space and realize I don't have to have these things to go into that feeling. Those things are only there to help me get to know the feeling, but not for me to rely on them or to depend on them. And, like you say, this programming is there so much to pull us into this direction. And this has been part of the whole building of creating us to be insecure, because if we're insecure, that pulls us very easily into fear. And when we're in fear, we're controllable. We're turning our power over. We can be completely manipulated in that space. And that's the thing. So the less, it's not that you don't have things or you can't have things or any of that. It's not about deprivation, but it's about not being dependent on them. And that's where you shift the direction. And when you're in that space where you're not relying on things outside of yourself to make you feel better, then you are at a point where you're not controllable.
Yes.
You can't be brainwashed as easily. You can't be, you won't receive the mind manipulation programs as easily. You won't be able to be hypnotized as easily, things like this. And then you were bringing up, taking these little pieces, breaking things down into smaller chunks, going out and helping somebody else. Sometimes those are the pieces that we need to do. And I find oftentimes if I just break things into smaller pieces, then it becomes easier to get through things. Instead of saying, I have to do 10 hours of work, it's like, okay, I just need to do 1 hour today. If I'm going to do 1 hour today, 1 hour tomorrow, I'm going to honor this. I'm going to have my stopping points, things like that. Oftentimes, if we go out and help somebody else, as you were mentioning, Sharnael, it brings us into that unconditional love. It brings us into that space of the heart-centered energy. And then that shifts us, and we automatically raise our self-worth when we sincerely and genuinely help somebody else without doing it to get something. Exactly. So, that's the thing. If we're doing it to get something like an affirmation or a validation or something like that, we may be disappointed. And it's not that they're not appreciative, but they may not specifically state, hey, thank you for this or thank you for that. But this comes down to another opportunity for us that you've opened the door on is, what if we're doing some trade? What if I'm doing some work for you and then you're doing some work for me? What if, I take a book to my massage therapist and I give her some free coaching work and then I get some free massage work back or things like this. And our time together, again, is creating these experiences, these sharing opportunities, these other things that you can't put a price on. You can't put a tag on it. And people may look at the world, again, coming back to those opportunities, people may look at the world and say, oh my God, I'm losing my job or this or that. For whatever reason, maybe I don't want to comply to something and they put these new regulations in and I don't want to do that. So what's your opportunity? Your opportunity is to do that thing that you've always wanted to do, to take that leap and that step and to start to figure out how you're going to do your own thing and to stop being dependent on what's outside of yourself. So all of these things are going to build our self-worth. And what's really great, and I see some people, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to hold the book up again. Oh yeah. And this is a thick book, by the way, people. It's thick. That I put out, but this book is a great guide. It's a great guide to telling us this is the day to daydream, or this is the day to just kind of let it go because you're not going to get things done. This is the day to be proactive, break through the mental barrier and just get started. And once you do, everything will flow and you'll be able to get more than you expect done. And that's one of the great things about this book is getting us in those natural flows, right? That come and go so that we can ebb and flow with the currents of what's happening. And It's got it for the moon cycles and the year and the months and the angel cycles. So it puts us in all of these natural rhythms. And a lot of people, when they're working with this book, and you're probably experiencing it because you're getting ready to go on your second full year with this book. And I've got several other people that are starting their fifth year.
Actually, it's my third. It's my third.
Third year?
Yep. Yeah, it's my third. I have 2019 as well.
I think that this is, exciting for people when they start to realize, oh, okay, what I'm feeling is not crazy today, or there's a reason behind the stress. There's a reason behind the tension, or, okay, I had A, B, and C plan, but I see that maybe this isn't a good day for that. And so let me shift directions and do this other thing that needs to get done that maybe isn't so mentally taxing or requiring mental clarity. Or, today is not a strong communication day. So maybe I'm either going to work on something by myself, or I need to do a lot of follow-up on my communications, or I need to be a little more patient, a little more forgiving of the misunderstandings that might come up in things. So I think that these are all pieces that are really great with the book. For example, it's going to give you that heads up. It's going to give you that opportunity to work with the foresight to know, where do I flow, or to realize, okay, I understand this is why my self-worth is tanking out today, or I'm feeling this bigger challenge or this bigger sense of defeat right now, because there's this conflict energy and it's coming up within family. And these are not the people that should be turning their back on me, or things like that. And you have that understanding, or you understand, okay, this naturally has a conflict with family today. And so if that's the case, maybe this isn't the day for me to bring up certain discussions with them. Yes. Because it's going to create bigger battles than they're not going to be listening.
Yeah, and what she's talking about with the codes for personal is she actually can do your own personal codes for your year as well. And so so I've had my codes done. So to be clear, I have 3 of the books for the year, but I've actually had my codes done 2 years. So that's what you were thinking, and I want to make sure I'm clear on that, or clear that up. But there's been several times when I've looked at like my month at the beginning, and I kind of like goes, okay, and I kind of like put it in the back of my mind just to kind of give me a heads up of how things can go. And then I kind of forget about it. And like yesterday, I just read my codes for the month of December and reread them. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I could see where things happened, and either it worked out because I did the right thing, or oh man, I got snagged up in that one. And she even wrote about it, and I should have saw it coming or paid more attention. But there's been stuff with our move and different things that were right along with the codes of what you've shown that were in my code too. And again, code is changeable. Everything is changeable. And it's all, it depends on location, what you're thinking about, what you're talking about, who you're hanging out with. Everything can shift really quickly. But it's good to know where you're at sometimes, just to kind of like gauge on any big choices that are before you, that you're just like, maybe not today, like you said, going back to the taking big steps or big leaps, or making them bite size. I was going to bring this up too, but accountability is a big thing. And if you have accountability, or someone can walk you through it, or someone can guide you, or you have that heads up, then sometimes that'll help you to work with the energies instead of like having to really push through, like whatever is just not a good time. And so I definitely encourage you guys to get your codes done, and or I also do like my year for astrology, and there's all kinds of different things that you can do but getting a coach, having a friend that's accountable. I mean, even if it's like the gym situation, it's like, okay, I'm just going to put it on Facebook that I'm going on a fast, or I'm getting back into keto, or I'm going to go to the gym today, or make it a fun thing where it's like a bunch of people doing it together. It doesn't seem as hard to do it alone as it is with like other people, and that accountability, someone who can check up on you and go, hey, did you do that? And just kind of make it a little bit more of a commitment when you make it out loud, versus just like in my head, I could say I'm going to do this, and it's like, yeah, but if I don't, then it's not going to, big deal. But if I tell my whole family I'm doing this, then they're like, why don't you do this, mom or wife or friend, or you know what I mean? So anyway, but going back to accountability with the codes, it kind of gives us the opportunity to look ahead and say like, ooh, how can I shift this? Or how can I work with this? Or, what's the undercurrent here that maybe I can go around a back way or a side way? You know what I mean? Am I saying it right? I mean, I hope you know what I'm saying, and I hope you guys are following me here. But go ahead.
Well, and I'm glad you brought the accountability piece up, because I talk about that a lot in the book. That's one of the code patterns that come up that talk about being accountable. And a lot of people think, oh, accountability, that's not very fun. That's really hard, heavy energy. That is an aspect of what do I want to say? Just full of challenges. And a lot of people, I think, again, they resist accountability because the self-worth piece comes in. And they feel like, well, if I don't meet this, I'm going to fail. I failed in things.
I don't like the way I feel when I fail. So,
and I don't like the way that feels.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but accountability is really interesting, because we forget that we hold a lot of power when we stand in accountability. When we're not being accountable for things, and a lot of people, they don't like to admit that they've made a mistake. They don't like to admit that, hey, maybe that wasn't the wisest decision for me to make. But when we do stand in that, and we're willing to stand up and say, you know what, hey, I'm sorry I snapped at you the other day because, I was in a bad space, and that really wasn't a nice thing to do. And I'm sorry, I was wrapped up in my own stuff. Or just like, hey, yeah, you know what, I made an error. And I think part of it is that we've been pushed into a society where there's no room for an error. Almost people feel like, well, I mean, look at it. How many jobs have been replaced by machines and equipment and things like this? So people feel this huge pressure. But when we take accountability, we're actually taking our power back. When we're not being accountable, what we're doing is leaving ourselves open to manipulation. We're leaving ourselves open to trying to please other space. And we're not here to please everybody else. It's simply about, when we are responsible, though, we're going to open up some really interesting different patterns with that responsibility that can bring us some really amazing blessings. And so the piece with accountability is not so much about a right or wrong. So if people can get that out of their head and say that accountability is not about right or wrong or feeling embarrassed or shame or anything like that, it's about upholding integrity.
Yes.
And it's about saying, look, this is not the direction to go, or this is not working for me, or I'm seeing this, but if I go down this route, I'm only doing it to please somebody else. And what I need to do is I need to be staying focused on what is in alignment with integrity, what is inviting in divine presence. It's not that I finish such and such a project at a certain time. It's about how I do that project.
Yes.
And that's the accountability piece. Now, when you start to embrace accountability from this point of view, you are opening up so much power through divine presence that doesn't feel heavy anymore.
Exactly.
And that's incredible. That's an incredible space to be in. And I think when people embrace it that way, it's like, wow.
Well, and I can look at people who have been someone that I've looked up to in my life, and I've seen when they've made mistakes and they own it, versus when they make mistakes and try to cover it and, are resistant to owning it. And what I have seen, some of the best friends and leaders that I have are people that when they do make a mistake, they are accountable and they do own it. And it's quickly dissolved in that sense, because it's like, you know what, that was messed up. Like you said, sorry, that I was in a bad space, or, oh, I wasn't thinking, or, oh, I forgot. I didn't write it on my calendar. You know, when you can take that ownership and just stay in that and hold that accountability to yourself, and be and have it, I think it gives that person more credibility to, and it teaches. It's a great teaching time too, to say, like, you know what, no matter who you are, you can own it. And this is how a leader does this: is you make a public statement, or you make an apology, or you make a phone call, or you send a text, or whatever it is to make it be okay. And there's a chemistry reaction in the physical body that goes along with that, because when you're not true, even if it's like not being on time or not being accountable or whatever, then the body registers that as a lie. And when the body when you're living the lie, there is stress, and it puts your hormones at a high cortisol, fight or flight, and it stays there until it's recorrected. And so when we can reconnect and recorrect, and make the right choices and be response able, then there's that flow again to be in alignment with love. And going back to your alignment of heart, love, there are chemicals that basically come and saturate the whole body for immunity and energy and metabolism and connection and that bond. And we do it with whether we know we're doing it or not. It's still happening. And so again, it goes back to that great opportunity times. In the middle of challenges, there's always a containment, a victorious opportunity there. And anyway, I know we went over time that I thought we would do, and I'm so sorry we went late, but
I want to get a comment on
yes,
and to piggyback that really quick, is that too, in the accountability, if we will be accountable in the moment, the sooner the better, the less something becomes a big issue. And the less accountable we are, and if we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to own up to it, that is just going to grow and expand and become a bigger and bigger issue that becomes a scarier and scarier thing to face in the process. And as you mentioned, working with the book, what it gives you the opportunity to do is it's not about changing the influences, because you can't change the currents that are present, but what you can do is change how you deal with them. Exactly. And that is the difference, because when you look at it and you read it and you say, okay, there's challenges today. People are going to be maybe angry or irritable or not paying attention or whatever it is. But you know what? I have the opportunity to shift what we get out of that energy, and to say, okay, that means I need to step up and be extra kind, extra patient, come that much more from the heart with people. And it gives me a chance to not be swept up into that current that can lead me with some things that maybe I'm not happy about doing. Instead, I can go in and say, okay, I can shift the result of this energy or the experience I have with this energy. And that's an incredible, incredible space to be in.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, people are asking, where do I get the book? I got Linda here. Where do I get the book? And just how can they connect with you if they want to get their own reading or their own codes read, the reports for that? Like, just give us any final words and how people can find you. And also, I'm going to tell everybody watching, if you could please do your due diligence and share this, get it out there, tag it, because you never know who in the world could listen to even 5 seconds of this, and it could be like, oh, and really encourage them and help them to remember their love and their frequency and their accountability and their responsibility in this season for victorious opportunities.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, again, people, they can contact me through social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the basics. I'm also on Gab, Parler, Clout Hub.
Everywhere.
Yeah, Safe Chat. So I'm around a few places, maybe not as much as some people, but several places in there. Also, just going straight to my website, compassioncodes.com. And again, you want to make sure that you're getting the edition you want, because sometimes when you go in, I have all the links that will get you directly to the page so that you can see it. The 2022 book has this great full moon picture on there. And you can get it on there. There's also contact forms that you can contact me through the website as well. in there. And really, in this is a tool of power. Over and over again, I hear from people, Sharnael, it's like, I am not going through another year without this book. And I have the gift of watching these beautiful changes happen in people's lives that, they start off in one space and they might be very self-absorbed, or they're thinking they're a certain point along in their process. And then as they start to work with this, they're like, oh my God, I never thought of it this way. I didn't realize I was doing this. Or, to see this unfolding. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter whether somebody's brand new on their path or whether they've been on their path for decades and they're coaching other people like yourself. Things like this that have so much wisdom already to share. But it is your path that's simultaneously synchronizing and harmonizing with what the currents are and what's happening in the world, and being aware of that, because you need to be aware of what is impacting people so that you know how you need to respond or be, or to go forward into things. And then it's also your own journey, because it's asking questions each and every day and month and all of these things to open your mind up and unprogram the material world programming, and to reconnect further and further and in deeper layers with your soul self. I also run study sessions twice a month at the new moon and the full moon. They're recorded, so if people can't come in live, they can always listen to the recordings. Those links are on the website. If you have any trouble finding anything, just contact me and I'll help you out with it. I don't mind to do that. So that's a really great thing. So I do have a little bit of time to do some personal year reports before I really kick into the 2023 book. And so that is option. And also there are things where I might be able to do just some insight sessions with people if we don't do a full report, or I might be able to look at just life codes for what their challenges are for their life. I think I've done that with you as well. So those are all options people can work with. But I think the key that I want to leave people with today is, don't get discouraged, because the power is always within you. You as a single individual has the ability to influence this world and to change it and to make a difference. And you might not always see when that difference is, but I have it happen all the time where I don't really hear from somebody, which is actually a good thing in many ways in my book, because I figure like, hey, they're on their own journey. They're not dependent on me. And that's awesome. They shouldn't be dependent on me. I don't want them dependent on me. I want them building their own life and creating their own joys and their own experiences. And so, but then they'll pop in, where I haven't heard from them in 6 months, 9 months, a year. And they're like, I've had the most amazing journey over the last year, and I have all these things going on. And it's so exciting to see the transformations, because this book has a way of bringing out your own personal knowledge from within you. And even though we're all going through these shared currents, we're all experiencing them in our own ways, in our own lives. And you start to find that flow where you open up and okay, when this influence comes up, I know exactly who's going to show up in my life, or I know exactly who's going to get triggered by it. And you start to see these patterns and these currents. So never forget you have the power. And when you most feel like breaking down, hang in there, stand strong, keep aligning with the integrity, and realize that you don't need anything outside of yourself to be great. You are great where you are, how you are. And you have a gift somewhere in you, maybe it hasn't been fully unfolded yet, that nobody else has. You have a way of bringing something through, even if 2,000 other people are doing it or 2 million other people are doing it. You have a way of bringing it through that's going to reach people that those other 2 million aren't going to reach. So never be afraid to step in it. Stay true to you, even when it's challenging, even when it's hard, even when the questions come up, because people are coming to you. You don't want them coming to you because you're trying to be like somebody else. You want them coming to you and interacting with you because of who you are. And you're not going to draw the people in who can appreciate that until you start being you.
Yep, I agree. There is no competition. That's all an illusion. And every one of you out there have your expression that only you can express and be. And so I love that. And I'm going to tell everybody what your website is.
CompassionCodes.com.
CompassionCodes.com. And I have one testimony. I don't think I've even told you. In November, I had a coincidental, strange turn of events that happened. And I remember when you did the codes with me. We did it way back in September, and you went over it with me after I got my reports and stuff. And what stuck out to me is when you looked at it, you were like, "Oh my God, what did you say? God help anyone who F's with you in November." So that's what you exact words said, and I laughed because I just thought it was humorous, and I kind of forgot about it. And then something came up with a real estate issue, and there was like some major hiccups there. And because you had told me, they're going to try to do this or that or this, but in the end, they're not going to be able to do it because you're going to hold your ground and stand in your integrity. And God forbid, because the backlash would be ridiculous. And anyway, you were right. And but I forgot about it. And then one night in the middle of the night, I was like going through the OCD neurotic, like injustice mind thing of what was going on, and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go look." And so I went and looked, and it said that, and it reminded me, and I was like, "I got this. They're not going to get anything," because all the worry and everything. I was just like, "Well, what if they get away with this, and what if this happens? Because this is going to affect that," and all the mental neurotic, stupid worry, fear programs, right? And but then I was like, "Oh no. They're going to be screwed because they were screwing with me, and I'm going to be fine." And so, but I woke up that morning, and Brian, my husband, was like, "What? Did you think about anything or whatever? You got anything?" I said, "All I'm going to say is anyone who effed with me in November, God help them." It became like a mantra. Like anytime something came up, I was like, "Oh no, it's November, baby," So that I forgot to tell you that, but it's just a little bit of a funny thing of how I could use what you showed me in a way that, I'm not going to sit here and say I like read every day and be like, "Oh my God, to a T." I sort of glance at it and pick it up and put it down, because you could get obsessive with it too and be like all weird about it. But I like to be a little bit more in the flow. But y'all check out her book. Y'all see what I'm talking about. And she does one for like the world. And so this is like a global experience, but then she can also do your personal too. And it's just really fun to kind of have a heads up and to know like what works for you in these seasons and times, and what's going on with our year next year. And I'm excited. I just ordered the book for 2022. It's so weird. It feels like 2020, but new doors, new beginnings. Thank you again, An, for being with us. And I hope to have you back before the end of this year. And maybe we'll do like a pivotal year kind of catch up or something and see where we're at. And good luck with your transitions and your move and this new place for you. That's a big leap, and I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that. And I have a lot of people that do that. They're like, "Man, you were spot on." They hit those walls and they go back and look at their codes, and it's like, "Yep, you were spot on. It's right there. It explains it." And it does help even when we're dealing with the really tough challenges. Like I have a couple of people I know that are on death codes, and a lot of this heavy death sort of energy in their life. And they're like, "You know what? I don't like this energy, but the fact that I knew what I was on made a difference in how I handled it." Because if all this stuff just started going down and I didn't have a heads up of what's going on, it would have been 10 times harder to deal with it.
Yes, ma'am.
And, I love being on your show. I love your audience. They're an amazing audience. They're bright, they're intelligent, they're aware of what's happening in the world. And they're also on the spiritual path at the same time, which is so right there. And I have more things that are going to be coming out on my Connecting Codes channel on YouTube, which deals more with world events. And I'll be talking about the codes of world events. And, anytime you want to have me back on your show, I am going to be there. And I would love to, maybe even at some point delve into some of the world events from a code perspective. I know you had a guest on not long ago that was talking about some of the biblical things and biblical connections of different things. But even breaking these different pieces down that we're dealing with, because there's always these energy patterns. And I think, again, we can change the world and we can make a difference in this world as we understand these patterns and these ideas and these concepts of what's behind what's happening, because everything's energy. So when you understand the energy patterns, then you know what you need to do energetically and physically to adjust those energy patterns.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Please do share and like and get this video out there. Definitely connect with on all the things that she's doing. Go to swiftfire.org, get on the newsletter, subscribe to YouTube, Facebook. You know, I don't know, it's hit or miss. But I hope to see you guys around. We got a lot of shows coming out this week. And definitely check out the book, swiftfire.org. It just got out on audio about a month and a half ago. And I've had so many really good responses from people who actually not only had the physical book, but just hearing that was seeing some different shifts in their own energies and abilities to report really good miracles and changing their patterns and seeing some things happen. So love you guys so much, and we'll be in touch soon. And you guys make today great, okay? Just be true. Make today great. You are amazing people, and you have it within you to shine and radiate your love right now. I love you, Sue. All right, bye-bye.
Take care.